Hello everyone, I am Ruth. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm gonna introduce the wonderful American artist Adam Nahas. So welcome, Adam.
Hi,
Hi.
everybody.
I haven't seen you for a long time since this COVID-19 start. Here we go.
I'm super dirty, by the way. I'm here at
It's
and
okay.
we've been cleaning all day.
Are you
But
working?
yeah, a little bit.
Oh, where are you?
I am over at our 11th Street spot, the Berlin Ingot site.
Oh, okay. Great.
But yeah.
See you. I really miss you.
Yeah, we miss you too. I'm excited that we're getting to connect again.
Yes. Have you been busy?
Yeah, like you wouldn't believe. I mean, we've still got a lot of projects that are happening. They're just not in the building so much. So like we've got that retail space in the mall, and it's getting ready to open back up. I've been working on like the Janeway project, which just got installed last week. We've been here at Berlin Ingot kind of getting it going for the fall. A lot of people, want to do projects when it's winter out. So trying to get all of our tools reorganized here. And we've been doing like a food pantry at 2nd Street. There's been a lot of new partnerships. We're partnering with like the Girl Scouts. We've partnered with the People's Market. We've partnered with, there's an internet company called the Wi-Fi Mill that we're working with. So yeah, I mean, we're staying really busy.
Wow, a lot of work.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
So how are you?
I'm great. I have, since COVID happened, I am a new father. And so I've got a lot of new responsibilities having a daughter. And I've been trying to juggle being a full-time dad with being a executive director of Artisan Alley, which has a lot of different facets to it. So it would be an understatement if I said I had a lot I was doing on my hands and very busy. But it's been good. The first few months I got to quarantine with my daughter and we were home all the time, and that's been really great. And now that, COVID's still happening, but I've been able with, lots of support from my wife to be able to kind of like work on the weekends and work when she's not working on maintaining our business and maintaining our community. But yeah, all in all, things are good. We're not struggling too bad. We've been able to pivot and make some things work. So all in all, things are good.
Great. Very good to hear you feel good. So I saw your daughter's pictures. Very adorable. I like
She's
it
cute.
so much.
She's a much better looking version of me. We have the same haircut, but mostly because she doesn't have much hair growing in at this point. But no, she's beautiful. She's great. She's learning to crawl and stand, and she's eating more solid foods now. I mean, still purees, but yeah, no, she's doing awesome.
Yes.
She's the joy in my life for sure.
Yes. That's great. That's great. Okay. Would you please introduce yourself? Because I want to introduce you to the Chinese people and also the American people, because you are fantastic artist and you own the Artisan Alley organization.
Yeah, I can do a little introduction. So you guys know my name is Adam Nahas. I started off as a illustration artist and soon switched into sculpture. And I had other art backgrounds in music and performance and theater, but all of those kind of led me back to the visual arts realm. So I started a business in like 2005 called Cyclops Studios, and through that business I do a lot of custom metalwork, custom projects, project management, and just really I'm very diverse in a lot of different mediums, but primarily work in sculpture rather than 2D arts. And then about 11 years ago, I created a collective called the Trained Eye Art Center. and with a lot of other people. And it was this wonderful collective. We all came together. We started having art shows and benefits. We offered studio rentals, and that has evolved and become Artisan Alley. And Artisan Alley now has 4 locations in Bloomington, and each location has a different resource for the community. So we have a space on 2nd Street that has a gallery and a classroom that's part of a co-work environment and lots of private studios there. We have a space on Kirkwood that also acts as a co-work environment, but it's got a lounge, and there's lots of artists that are at that space. And then here at our 11th Street property, you can see the tools behind me. We offer an industrial workshop where people can come and make a big dusty mess, but it's set up for stone work, glass work, wood, metal, ceramics, and just a little bit of everything. We've got lots of tools that are around. That's part of the tool library that people can borrow and take home, or you can become a member or get day passes and utilize the space that we provided. And then we have another space out at the mall that's opening back up since the COVID sometime in November. And that is our retail space that we sell local and handmade artworks for the public to purchase to support those artists that have made them. But that kind of summarizes like what Artisan Alley does. And
Okay, let's talk about the next questions. I'm really interested in your artwork. So would you please introduce more about that?
Sure. So I have a few, I started off as an illustrator. And so in my younger days, I did a lot of drawing. I started off doing portraits of friends and family just so I could get kind of the hang of it, to try to be as realistic as I could. Before I got into that, it was more comic books. So things weren't as anatomically correct. Things were exaggerated, bigger muscles for the guys and curvier bodies for the girls. And, villains had big heads and big hands, so they would seem a little creepy. But I kind of got away from that overall and started getting more into realism. And then as I wanted to project these things and create more 3-dimensional design, I started getting into clay sculpting. And I wanted to give people an idea of things that were real, but they were fake. And what I mean by that is I started getting into like folklore creatures. So creating minotaurs, centaurs, beasts, like fantastical beasts from Greek folklore. And so that was kind of my start into sculpture. And then through college, I learned a lot more about the metal process. I started doing jewelry, earrings, necklaces, stuff like that. And then right out of college, I started working at a bronze casting foundry. And so I learned the process of taking someone else's sculpture, taking a mold off of that to create another identical piece, but made out of a different material. So we could create plaster sculptures, or if they wanted to go as far as getting into a metal casting, we would create a rubber mold from that original, and then we could make a wax positive, and then that wax would get invested or covered in like a ceramic material. And then when you melt the wax out of it, it leaves a cavity that the bronze can flow into, and that ceramic shell that was around the wax would withstand the heat of the metal so that the metal would cool while it was still inside that void. And then you could take a hammer and kind of beat on the ceramic, and it would break off, leaving the metal underneath. And then, sometimes we'd have to weld pieces back together because they were too big as their own sculpture. So sometimes you have to cut pieces down and then put them back together, re-weld them, and grind the surface back into it so you couldn't see that it was welded. But for many, many years, I'd say about 9 years, I worked for a foundry called the White River Foundry out of Spencer, Indiana. And I was really fortunate to get this job, an art job right out of college, have, a long career with it. And we did artwork pieces for other artists all over the world. So I really got to learn the process to help artists take their ideas or take their sculptures and take it to the next step and get it to something that has a lot more permanence, something that might have better detail. and really kind of help them along the way. And while I was working there, I still had my interest in anatomy. I still had my interest in fantasy art. So I would create things like angel wings that were, felt wings that were on like a bronze back or an aluminum back. I created things like lion heads and gargoyles, and really created a lot of sculpture. And I've worked with a lot of stone carvers in the Indiana area. A lot of the stone workers around here. Stone is a subtractive method. You can only chisel off stone. It's really hard to add stone back to it and still have that sculptural integrity. So they would ask me to make clay models for them so they could take measurements off of it, and then they'd carve down stone to try to match the clay that I would create for them. And then once they had a stone piece, then they could use that as the model to create multiples or duplicates out of stone. So I've been involved with much more industrial sculpture process. And there's some sculptor artists that work in ceramics, like oil or water-based clay, but I work more with oil-based clay. So you can't put that in a kiln, it would melt away. So the oil-based clay, you have to take molds of to create a different medium out of it later. But we generally use things that harden either with the room temperature or harden as part of a curing process. So we would use plaster, concrete, wax, and lots of different metals, aluminum, bronze, sometimes iron. But primarily bronze is the medium for outside sculpture because it lasts the longest. It doesn't weather, it doesn't oxidize like steel does, and it doesn't chip or break away like stone can. So I've been working on things like that. And I mentioned earlier that I've been working on the Janeway sculpture that's going in on the Beeline Trail. And that's a combination of a steel plate, limestone base, a concrete pad, and a bronze figure that fits on top. So I'm used to working with all these different mediums and bringing them together to make like a final image or a final idea. So I've had people that reach out to me that want to see sculpture go in, and I kind of help them with how the parts and pieces come together and the processes by which you get, a raw piece of stone or a raw chunk of metal and form it into the shapes that people want to create these visual sculptures or monuments or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Wow, it's a lot of creative things you have done. So I'm so excited to go into your studio.
So this is the mold for the Janeway statue, the Captain Janeway statue that's now on the Beeline Trail. And it is comprised of a inner rubber. This is a urethane, which is a mold making rubber. And it goes on to the original, it went on to the original clay sculpt. And then as it hardens, it's a liquid in the beginning, and as it hardens, it turns kind of more into this kind of rubber, but it also picks up all the details on the inside of the sculpt. So everything down to her fingernails and teeth and eyes and everything. And then this plaster back is added onto the rubber so that when the piece comes out, when the original sculpt comes out, that this gives structure to the rubber so it doesn't deform. And so then what's happened is once the original clay is taken back out, then this can be used to act as a mother mold, and you are able to pour wax like what's in here. Some of these little red drippings are in here, but the whole thing will either get filled with wax and then dumped out once the outer layer has hardened and the inside is still molten wax, or you can brush it on and then do what's called a slush casting, where you pour a little bit of wax in and roll it around so it builds up that thickness. And as you know, wax hardens when it cools, and so you do that a few times to build up a shell of wax about 1/4 inch thick. Then once the wax is done, you take off the plaster again, and I can demonstrate that. So this is the plaster shell. And then this is the mother mold. So I'll show you this. This can open up.
Wow.
And then her head and all the details are in here. So I'll try to stand this up so you can kind of see some of it.
but in here is her ears and face. You can kind of see a reverse of it, the opposite there. And so it was cut along the back of her body so that we could pull the wax out that way. And then there are, when the wax is done, you'll see a seam where these lines are, but that's on her back rather than her face. So we have to clean up those lines a little bit in the wax to make it look like, to hide the process, to hide the seam. So the trick is, as you kind of put this back on, you want to make sure that it goes back together as accurately as you're able to make it. So you've got to spend a little bit of time kind of getting all the parts and pieces to match up from the inside. Then once it's all formed like that, then you would add this back over to it and put a bungee or a ratchet strap on this so that the wax doesn't leak out. And you strap this up or wrap it up, and then it's ready to re-accept wax.
How do you make the rubber one?
The rubber, okay, so the rubber, imagine the sculpt is standing here, just like me. Your arms are crossed like this.
So you must make the sculpture first, right?
Yes, you have to make the sculpture first, and it's you use it whenever you're going to make a mother mold, something that is used to recreate a different sculpt. You want to start off with an oil-based clay. Now, a lot of ceramic artists are used to using a water-based clay because they're going to fire it. They're going to put it in a kiln. The kiln evaporates the water, and what's left is hard clay. The clay I use for this type of project is oil, so it always stays soft. It never hardens. And it's just used to create the shape, and then this captures that shape. But when you've got the clay sculpt, you take this rubber, but the rubber's a liquid at that form. You mix it together with another element that makes it harden, and you brush, like with a paintbrush, it all over the sculpture, and you do that again and again and again, and that builds up that thickness of rubber. And then once that rubber hardens, then you add the white plaster back over the sculpture, over the rubber. And then once it hardens, it's to hold the rubber in place once the sculpt comes out. So you do that in that stage, because when it's done, and you pull the mold or the cast back out, you need to make sure that it has that plaster backing. So then the wax or the rubber gets applied, and once the rubber's applied, then a plaster goes on, and the plaster has a combination. There's fibers that are built into it, so you can use fiberglass, you can use burlap, you can use anything that has kind of a fabric element to it, and that'll keep it from cracking, it'll keep it from separating apart, because there's fibers woven throughout the whole thing. And then that completes the mother mold, but this can be used again and again and again, as long as it's stored properly, in case something happens to the original piece. But I could make, instead of going through the bronze process of putting wax in there and then going through the investment mold process, I can also pour concrete into it, or plaster, or wax if I want to. And as that hardens, I can create a duplicate out of almost any other medium that goes from a liquid to a solid state.
So anytime you make the sculpture, you will make that?
Yes, if we're going to go through like the metal state, you have to make a mother mold for it. And that's what this is. This is the mother mold.
If someone want to buy your artworks, how can they?
There's a few different ways. I have a website, which is cyclops-studios.com. And that's a portal that you can go to if you're wanting to ask questions, or you need help with the project, or if you want to buy stuff, I can send you images that way. But most of the work that I have that's for sale is at our mall location as a part of Artbeat, which is Artbeat is a project of the Arts Alliance and Greater Bloomington, and Artisan Alley is partnered with the Arts Alliance. So Artisan Alley and all of our members have items in the mall that are for sale. But I also, just as my own artist, as myself, have put up different bronze pieces, and I've got all kinds of different metal crafts that I put in over there as well. So you can pick it up in person at the mall once the mall opens back up in November, or you can reach out to me through my website and I can send you pictures and prices of things that are available.
Okay, that's great. Can I ask about your organization?
Okay.
Like, why you want to doing this?
So, while I was working at the foundry, I was working 8 to 5, and my nights, I didn't have a family. I didn't have a wife or a kid. And I did love art. I wanted to do stuff. And because I got this great professional experience working at a foundry, and I had these different skills and all these tools that kind of came with it, I started to open my shop up to other artists and try to train them and work with them, educate them, help them along the way. And after doing that with just like 1 or 2 people here and there, I thought, well, wouldn't it be great if me and some of my other artists came together and we, all pitched in to cover a bigger building so that we could have a space outside of our home that we could collaborate more with. And so it started off just, me wanting to be around other artists and have my own space rather than trying to do everything out of my basement or my garage. And then once we had that space, it was a lot easier to kind of dream and come up with like, well, why don't we do a gallery show? Why don't we invite other artists to join? Maybe we could do like a workshop with them. And then more and more artists started coming to us and say, I'm working on this project, or do you guys have any extra space, or I'd love to volunteer and help you with what you're doing. And over, the last 10 years, it's just grown and grown and grown. And a lot of the, the people who were involved in the beginning didn't really want to deal with the administration side of things, like, keeping things organized or, helping to train other people. A lot of artists kind of focus on their own mediums and their own projects. And I was, the extrovert that I am, just liking to work with other people. And so once we had the space, once we had the interest, for me, it was really clear that Bloomington needed something like that because there were so many people approaching us and saying, I need space and I want a place to work. Can I use your space to teach out of? So we started, as we got more interest, we started to set spaces aside for people so that we would have those areas and it wouldn't disrupt the other artists that were trying to work on their own things. So Artisan Alley was born after I came back from California and started to see how a lot of other arts collective work together. And so that's when the first shared space that we offered was the gallery. Dimensions Gallery was the first space we did. And so that was a multi or a flexible space that we could do a small class and we could do a small art show and we could meet and greet with people. And then it turned into that people really wanted to make a mess, and a gallery is not a place you really want to make a mess. That's like kind of a clean, finished, space to show your work. So that's when we created Burl and Ingot, the tool library, which is where I'm at now. And that was the space that you could make the mess and you had the tools at your fingertips. And for people that don't have necessarily the money to just go buy a bunch of tools, we have tools that, most people have tools and they only use it sparingly. They only use it when they need to use it. And we've got all these tools that are here that we don't use all the time. So we thought, why don't we open that up to artists and let artists use our tools, use shared tools? And so that's what started the tool library. And so now other people bring us tools that, they don't use anymore, or they bring us materials that they're done with. And now we've got this place that other people can come to, find the materials, find the consumables, use the tools that are here. And then a little bit after that, we started the retail store. And then the retail store turned into a classroom. And then another retail store turned into a lounge for brainstorming and working with people. So everything has kind of evolved from the needs of other artists. And I've just kept trying to make spaces available that we think would be useful, whether you're an artist that might not work with the public, you just need your own work environment, or teachers that are artists that want to teach and make their income through having that extra space, or from selling products or doing a show, or having an artist statement, or a mission statement that they're trying to voice, some kind of idea out, or, the retail side, they're just trying to sell, they're just trying to make an income for their families. So I've wanted to keep doing this because not only are the connections I make, a lot of times they turn into friendships, but a lot of them, are still maintained as professional relationships. I work with all types of people who will ask me for services. So it grows my professional circles. It grows my personal circles. And I get the opportunity to work with all these different mediums because the artists are the ones who bring me ideas about what they're trying to do, and I just try to help them actualize it or realize it, and I can help out with a lot of the steps along the way. But I've never been one of those artists that's been super conceptual. I've never been the artist that puts out something out there that challenges how someone thinks, or more of a cerebral artist. I've been more of the contractor artist, someone who can get the job done but might not come up with the idea. So a lot of artists are the ones who come up with these ideas but then can't make them happen the rest of the way. They don't have the resources, or they don't have the hands or the time or whatever. So that's kind of when I step back in and say, all right, I can help you get there, and I can help you along the way. And some people, I just show them the way. Other times I'm actually walking them through and working with them. But no matter what it is, I love doing it. I mean, art is my life, and it's such a therapy for myself that I don't think I could do without it. If I turned around and worked at a desk job tomorrow, which I did for many years, and it was okay. But I love what I'm doing now. I get to meet a lot of creative people and just kind of help their dreams get them further along.
Yeah, trust me, the artists really appreciate you have this artisan alley for them, because I am artist, so I know, and I'm immigration. So as I myself, I want to give up my artist career. So, but when you come to the new countries, you really don't know where you can find the people to help you to continue to doing your things. And this organization, this place really gave me the chance to doing this. And I met a lot of artists, and I make friends. And also I had the new customer. I really, really appreciated it.
Yeah, and that's one thing I didn't even talk about, is the community that comes with it. So we become like a beacon for different people that have all these different creative ideas. And so not only is it like a one-on-one relationship, we're actually building a network of artists as well. And those artists can work with each other too. It's not just me helping them out, but it's our artists that help each other out in this big collaborative effort. So, I know you, connected with Mark Riggins, and through those connections, we were able to get that book, created. And I helped with maybe some little bit of contracts and stuff like that. But really, it was your art that got their ideas, but we help further it along. But
without you, I cannot do the contract. I don't know how to do that. It's too much for me. But you really helped. If any other artist needed to do the contract, they also can call you. Also can suggest.
Definitely.
That's really great. Okay, thank you for you come to my channel. And thank you for you did everything to me. Okay.
My pleasure.
Okay, bye-bye.